America's next big mistake will not just be a minor stumble, it will be the earthquake that shakes the balance of power in the world. And when that earthquake hits, the dust will settle with one truth that cannot be denied. India will rise, India will dominate, India will claim its rightful place as the global winner of the 21st century. I want you to imagine this moment, because it's not a question of if, it is a question of when, and when that moment arrives, there will be no turning back. The world will look at the decisions made in Washington, and they will ask, how did they let this happen? But the answer will be simple. They underestimated the hunger, the ambition, the drive, and the unstoppable energy of India. For decades, America believed that it could shape the world in its image. It believed that no matter what, its influence was untouchable. But the truth is, power is never permanent. Dominance is never guaranteed. The mistake America is about to make is not just about policies, not just about economics, not just about military missteps. It is about arrogance. It is about believing that they can continue to dictate the rules of the game while ignoring the fact that there is a player on the field who has been training, preparing, and building strength like never before. That player is India, and while America will waste time on short-term strategies, distractions, and conflicts that drain its focus, India will step forward with a long-term vision, a strategy rooted in discipline, and a population that refuses to settle for anything less than greatness. You see, America's next mistake will be thinking that the 21st century can be won with the same playbook of the 20th century. They will rely too much on military power, too much on intimidation, too much on outdated alliances that no longer carry the same weight. They will spend their energy trying to control, trying to dictate, trying to micromanage the rise of others instead of focusing on their own renewal. That is the mistake, that is the blindness, and when you are blind to the new reality, you lose. At the same time, India is not blind. India is watching. India is learning. India is absorbing every lesson, every opportunity, every opening. And when the time comes, it will not just step into the vacuum America leaves behind. It will run into it, full speed, with a fire that no one can extinguish. Think about this. More than 1 billion people, most of them young, full of energy, full of ambition. A country that is not only the largest democracy in the world, but also one of the most resilient societies on the planet. A country that has faced centuries of challenges, oppression, poverty, and division, yet still finds ways to rise, to innovate, to adapt. That kind of resilience is not created overnight. That kind of strength is not built in laboratories or boardrooms. It is forged in the struggles of everyday people who refuse to give up. That is India's advantage. America's mistake will be assuming that GDP numbers, weapons, and sanctions are enough to hold back a nation like that. But they are not, because there is no weapon, no policy, no sanction strong enough to break the will of 1 billion people united by one dream, to stand tall as a global leader. America's mistake will also be in misunderstanding the meaning of leadership in this century. Leadership is not about domination anymore. Leadership is not about who can impose their will on others. Leadership is about who can inspire, who can connect, who can bring nations together for mutual progress. And in this, India has an edge, because while America divides, India can unite. While America preaches confrontation, India can preach cooperation. While America burns bridges, India can build them. This is not weakness, it is strength. And make no mistake, when the world grows tired of endless wars, endless sanctions, endless threats, they will look for a new voice, a new example, a new leader. That leader will be India, but let's be clear, this is not going to be handed to India on a silver platter. No one becomes the global winner of a century by accident. It takes vision, it takes strategy, it takes sacrifice. But here is the beauty of it. India already has the momentum. The numbers are undeniable. A growing economy that refuses to slow down. A technological sector that is innovating at lightning speed. A space program that is breaking barriers and inspiring millions. A diaspora spread across the world that carries India's influence into every corner of the globe. This is not potential anymore, this is reality. And while America will get lost in its own political battles, while it will waste years arguing with itself, while it will make the mistake of turning inward when it needs to look outward, India will continue to climb. Step by step, year by year, until the summit is within reach. Let me tell you something about mistakes. A mistake is not just an error, it is an opening. It is a chance for someone else to step in and do what you could not. And America's next mistake will be so massive, so defining, that it will open the door wider than ever before for India to claim the mantle of global leadership. Maybe that mistake will be abandoning allies. Maybe it will be underestimating new technologies. Maybe it will be ignoring climate change. Maybe it will be failing to invest in the education of its own people. But whatever it is, the consequences will be the same. America will lose ground and India will gain it. And the world will remember who seized the moment. I want you to imagine a future 20 years from now, a world where global companies no longer set up their headquarters in Silicon Valley, but in Bengaluru. A world where the most powerful diplomatic voices are not heard only in Washington or Brussels, but in New Delhi. A world where the ideas that shape humanity's progress on technology, on sustainability, on medicine, are born not just in Western labs, but in Indian universities and innovation hubs. That world is not a fantasy. That world is coming. And it is coming because America will make the mistake of thinking it can hold onto the crown by doing nothing different. But India will prove that the crown belongs to those who fight for it, those who earn it, those who never stop pushing forward. India's rise will not be loud and arrogant. It will be steady, determined, and undeniable. And America's mistake will make it faster, because when you try to stop something unstoppable, you only make it stronger. That is the irony. America will try to contain, to restrict, to control. And in the process, it will give India the perfect chance to prove its independence, its resilience, its ability to thrive even under pressure. And when India thrives under pressure, the world will see a leader that is not only capable, but unshakable. So yes, America's next big mistake will make India the global winner of the 21st century. But I want you to hear me clearly. It is not just about America losing, it is about India winning. It is about a nation of over 1 billion people finally stepping into the role history has prepared for it. It is about proving to the world that leadership is not inherited, it is earned. It is about showing that the future belongs not to those who rest on past glory, but to those who dare to dream bigger, to work harder, to never give up. That is why this century will not belong to America. It will belong to India. And when the historians of the future write about this time, they will not write about the decline of one power. They will write about the rise of another. They will write about how India, through patience, discipline, resilience, and vision, became the force that defined the 21st century. They will write about how America's mistake became India's opportunity. And they will write about how 1 billion dreams became one destiny. So prepare yourself, because the shift is already happening. The mistake is already forming, and the winner of this century is already stepping forward. The 21st century will belong to India, and nothing, no mistake, no obstacle, no opposition, will be able to stop it. Misjudging the importance of multipolarity will hand India the role of bridge builder in the 21st century, because the very structure of global power is changing before our eyes. For decades, America operated under the assumption that unipolarity was the natural state of international relations, that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, it had earned the uncontested right to dictate the global order. That assumption shaped its policies, its foreign relations, and its world view. It acted as if history itself had chosen it as the permanent center of power. But history does not choose permanent winners. History moves in cycles, and those who fail to adapt to the new cycle are left behind. America's mistake will be treating multipolarity as a threat rather than an opportunity, as something to resist rather than embrace. And that mistake will allow India to emerge as the central bridge in a world that no longer revolves around one or two poles of power, but around many. Multipolarity is not just an academic term, it is the reality of our time. Power is no longer concentrated in one capital, in one continent, or in one ideology. It is distributed, it is dynamic, it shifts with economics, with technology, with culture, and with diplomacy. Countries across Asia, Africa, Latin America, and even Europe are asserting their own interests, demanding their own voices, and refusing to be passive players in someone else's game. And in this new order, the question is not who dominates, but who connects. Who can act as the bridge between competing powers, between different regions, between contrasting interests? America, stuck in its mindset of dominance, will fail to grasp this shift. It will continue to see the world as a zero, some contest, a battlefield of winners and losers. But India will see something else. It will see a world where building bridges creates influence more powerful than any weapon, where cooperation builds legitimacy stronger than any sanction, and where diplomacy achieves victories that armies cannot. This role of bridge builder is not theoretical for India, it is already visible. India sits at the crossroads of East and West, North and South, tradition and modernity. It has ties to the developed world and the developing world. It speaks the language of democracy while also understanding the aspirations of nations that have been left out of the Western order. It has credibility with powers as different as the United States and Russia, with regions as diverse as Africa and Southeast Asia, with organizations ranging from the United Nations to BRICS. This versatility is India's superpower in a multipolar world. While America isolates itself with rigid alliances and confrontational policies, India can weave connections, balancing relationships that seem impossible for others to maintain. Take, for example, India's ability to buy oil from Russia while strengthening its ties with America, to host world leaders from across the political spectrum while maintaining its independence, to be part of Western-led economic frameworks while also championing the voice of the global South. This balancing act is not weakness. It is a sign of mastery in a multipolar environment. It shows that India does not need to choose sides to remain relevant. It can make itself indispensable to all sides. And the more America misjudges multipolarity, treating it as chaos to be controlled rather than a system to be navigated, the more India's skill in this balancing act will shine. Now, think about the symbolic weight of this. In a unipolar or bipolar world, a bridge builder has little value because power is defined by blocks and dominance. But in a multipolar world, a bridge builder becomes the center of gravity. When nations compete, they will look for a mediator. When conflicts rise, they will look for a trusted interlocutor. When opportunities emerge, they will look for someone to connect the dots. That is where India steps in. America, by failing to adjust, will exclude itself from this role. Its insistence on forcing countries to pick sides will alienate them, because no one in the 21st century wants to be treated as a pawn. Nations want agency, dignity, and space to pursue their own futures. America's mistake will be to deny them that. India's genius will be to provide it. The bridge builder role also has deep cultural roots for India. For centuries, India has been a civilizational connector, a hub of trade, philosophy, and ideas. From the Silk Road to maritime trade routes, from the spread of Buddhism to the exchange of spices, India has never been just an isolated state. It has always been a meeting ground. That historical memory matters because in the 21st century, the world is searching for a model of cooperation rooted in something more inclusive than raw power. India's cultural ethos of pluralism, its philosophical heritage of dialogue and coexistence, and its lived reality as a diverse democracy position it perfectly to fill that void. America, in contrast, increasingly projects division. Its domestic polarization spills into its foreign policy. Its rhetoric of us versus them alienates potential partners, and its inability to compromise makes it seem more like an obstacle than a leader. That is the misjudgment of multipolarity, the belief that confrontation is the only way to stay relevant. Economically, multipolarity means that no single market, no single currency, and no single trade bloc will define the century. Supply chains are diversifying, trade corridors are expanding, and nations are building alternative institutions. India understands this. That is why it invests in initiatives like the International Solar Alliance, the G20 presidency, or the push for new financial structures that give the Global South a stronger voice. Each of these is not about replacing one pole with another. It is about weaving a web of cooperation where India sits at the center. America, meanwhile, risks clinging to outdated economic models that emphasize dominance rather than partnership. And as it does, it will slowly watch the world bypass it, choosing instead the country that offers bridges rather than walls. Technologically, too, the multipolar age is about shared innovation, not monopolies. Artificial intelligence, renewable energy, biotechnology, these are not domains where one nation can rule unchallenged. They require collaboration, cross-border research, and diverse perspectives. America's mistake will be in trying to hoard or weaponize these technologies. India's advantage will be in offering to collaborate, to share, to co-develop. That spirit of partnership, of building rather than blocking, will draw nations toward India as a natural hub of global innovation. Once again, the bridge builder wins. Strategically, multipolarity will manifest in overlapping security frameworks, regional organizations, and flexible coalitions. The old model of rigid alliances will erode because nations will not want to be locked into permanent camps. They will prefer issue-based partnerships where they cooperate when interests align but maintain independence otherwise. America's mistake will be in demanding loyalty, in forcing countries to commit exclusively to its side. India's wisdom will be in offering flexibility, in respecting the autonomy of others, in creating spaces where cooperation is possible without submission. That approach will make India the most trusted partner in the world, the one nation everyone can work with even when they cannot work with each other. And let us not forget the moral and psychological dimension. Multipolarity represents not just a distribution of power, but also a redistribution of dignity. For too long, many countries have felt marginalized, dictated to, or dismissed by great powers. They resent it. They remember the arrogance, the lectures, the double standards. America's mistake will be continuing this behavior, assuming it can still talk down to others. India, on the other hand, speaks as a peer. It understands the struggles of developing nations because it has lived them. It does not dismiss their concerns, it amplifies them. This empathy, this ability to connect, will give India moral authority in a way America can no longer command. And in international relations, moral authority is the invisible glue that holds multipolar systems together. So when America misjudges multipolarity, it is not just making a strategic error, it is creating the very conditions that make India's rise inevitable. By refusing to adapt, it hands the initiative to India. By clinging to the past, it surrenders the future. By trying to dominate, it loses the chance to lead. And in the gap that opens, India steps in as the bridge, builder the world needs, the connector of continents, the mediator of disputes, the hub of cooperation. The 21st century is not waiting for anyone. The tectonic plates of power are shifting, and those who cling to old maps will be lost. America is drawing its lines in the sand, but the tide of multipolarity will wash them away. India, instead of drawing lines, is building bridges, and those bridges will stand strong, carrying nations across the divides of politics, economics, and ideology. That is why misjudging multipolarity is not just a mistake for America. It is a gift for India, the gift of destiny in a century defined not by domination, but by connection.